Welcome to the Solid Verbal. The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. Ty Hildenbrand here. Dan Rubenstein over there. solidverbal@gmail.com, as always, is our email address. Don't forget, you can find us at solidverbal and sbnation.com. If you like the show, we are out on iTunes at itunes.com/solidverbal. We are also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat. Yeah. Hi, Dan. How are you?
Everything is fine, Ty.
Everything's fine.
Ty, we have our health.
Yeah, we do.
We're surrounded by loved ones.
You're getting married.
I'm getting married. Life is great.
Things are looking up.
Let's just talk about life today.
We're doing a life show here on the Solid Verbal.
Yeah. I had good homemade food yesterday.
Yeah.
I got a decent night's sleep the night before.
Things are looking up.
Yeah, so let's just, what do you want to talk? NBA preview? What are your thoughts on the Milwaukee Bucks?
Yeah.
Promising, I would say.
College football week 4.
Yeah.
That's what we're here to discuss. It is now in the books, kind of a weird week of college football, I'd say. I came away feeling more impressed by most of the teams that had already impressed me in the first couple weeks, but at the same time, more disappointed by some of the teams that had disappointed me in the first 3 weeks of the season. So I was thinking like a goofy label for it, maybe Substantiation Saturday. Does that roll off the tongue?
Yeah, the image I had was, in Back to the Future when photos are being altered by history changing, but then as history is being corrected, then the picture sort of comes in as it should be, and it's becoming a little more clear. That's what I think I'm seeing. I'm seeing that the picture of teams is coming in clearer. We're seeing parts come in that we were waiting for, and I'm happy about that.
The team portrait of Notre Dame slowly sees Brian Van Gorder's image fade away with each passing week. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, a lot to discuss here between what happened in the SEC with Tennessee and Ole Miss and A&M, I think, getting some statement wins, and of course in the Big Ten with Wisconsin and Michigan, and the Big 12, we have to talk about Baylor. Not the least of which, of course, is Notre Dame and Oregon, which we'll get to a little bit later on in the show. But I did do the Reverbs this week because our boy Taylor from Talking Terps was not available. So let's get to those. Here are your week 4 Reverbs, and then we'll have at it.
Mr. Rubenstein, I am a Colorado Buffalo fan, and I have been to hell and back. If this is any consolation to you, it will get better. But it's not better today. In fact, it hurts.
Hey, this is Dylan from Baton Rouge.
This is Landon calling from Seattle.
This is Matt and Brian in Landover, Maryland.
Kyle from Redondo Beach, California.
Hi, this is Kim from Swanee, Georgia.
Hi, this is Steve calling from Maui.
I just got finished watching a fantastic Washington and Arizona game. I got some brats grilled up and a beer in my hand, and this is the way Pac-12 football should be enjoyed. In Australia, because it's Sunday afternoon here.
So I'm at a wedding in rural Illinois, but it's cool because I need the Big Ten Network to watch my game. But my hotel doesn't have the Big Ten Network in Illinois.
My Huskers are 4-0, and right now we're on a path to take talking to your kids about Iowa and blow it out of the water, baby.
Hey, Michigan State. Wisconsin is the first team in a while that hasn't overlooked you.
And this is Paul Chryst's master plan. Leave Pitt so Michigan State will lose Narduzzi. He knew it all along.
So I have a question. After all the time that Oklahoma State's offense spent on the field that game, did they just boat race themselves?
Hey, we may lose this game, but BYU's quest for 20 is complete. Play that King's Quest theme.
And while congratulations on BYU scoring more than 20, we just wanted to alert you of secretly okay West Virginia.
If you thought the Florida win streak over Tennessee was foolproof because it was Muschamp-proof, you were wrong!
So thankfully, the Rebels have finally gotten out whatever time the second half virus got out of their system. Only problem is it seems Florida has caught it now.
I just watched my Gators blow a 21-3 lead at the half.
Tennessee picking a knee on the goal line was
Borderline Iraq. This is LSU's next head coach, Tom Herman, and I am going to be a very, very rich man next year.
We are watching the LSU Auburn game, playing last year's Penn State drinking game with it, and we are getting murdered.
A&M stopped that Bird offense 8 times in one series on the goal line. And I think that deserves some sad Bert sounds on the podcast.
My dearest Donna, again we were defeated. I attempted to use terrible defense to trick the enemy, but General Trubisky was way too accurate.
The morning after the Georgia Tech Clemson game, and I'm reminded of y'all's preview show, and you said 8 years, and you haven't been able to figure out Georgia Tech. Well, I think after that game, the fans don't either.
There's a saying at Georgia Tech that you don't graduate, you get out. But let me tell you, there's no getting out of this pain.
My Jackets just lost to Clemson on Thursday night, and now I'm sitting in fluid dynamics class. We have hit rock bottom.
Oregon got upset. Notre Dame got upset. It's going to be a great, solid verbal.
Just want to let you guys know that you have a lot of friends. We're here for you.
Look at the Dukies and their diaper dandies taking down the Irish, baby!
Sitting in my room watching the Oregon Duck football game, and it's time to start talking to our kids about us losing to the University of Washington.
Sack Brian Van Gorder. Get him out. Fire him. He should be done. Go, Bob.
How many tackles has Notre Dame missed? Good Lord.
The last time Oregon started the season 2-2, I Adore Mia Moore by Color Me Bad was number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and Good Vibrations by Marky Mark was number 2.
So Notre Dame loses to Duke at home. It's the sort of thing that used to make me real happy, and it kind of still does, but knowing that somewhere out there in Allentown, Ty is very sad about this also makes me a little sad. And I mean that sincerely.
Guys, this is Rich from Colorado. Just watched the Oregon loss against my beloved CU Buffs, and all I got to say is,
a nice little primal scream there, Dan, to get things going here on this aftermath show of College Football Week 4. Thank you to everyone calling in. There are a few other reverbs that we'll reference along the way. As always, we can't squeeze them all in because there are hundreds, but an interesting question from our friend Devin, longtime listener Devin in Arizona, who wonders if this is the first time in the solid verbal era that both Notre Dame and Oregon have lost on back-to-back weeks. And I got to say, I honestly don't know.
I don't know when the last time Oregon lost in back-to-back weeks was. And I feel like it's before, I think it's pre-verbal. I think it's 2007 once Dennis Dixon went down. Yeah. So it has to be the first time that Oregon, well, and it's nice because we are immediately going to start talking about games that actually mattered.
Yeah.
So it's not talking about number 5 Notre Dame losing to Navy or, number 3 Oregon losing to Arizona, something like that. I love that we have to push those game recaps. Please, can we push those game recaps?
We might push them right out of the show. You never know.
Good. You never know.
You never know. All right. Let's start with Tennessee at home against Florida. So we had a gentleman who actually called in, and I wasn't able to squeeze this reverb in, but a fantastic call from a Vols fan who basically said that he was there with his 12-year-old daughter, and she had never seen the Vols win in this game. After halftime, she went upstairs and stopped watching the game, and then things started going well. He wouldn't let her back downstairs because he took the logical approach, which is exactly what I would have done, and assumed that she was the jinx. So good on you, Mr. Vols fan. Tennessee wins 38-28, Dan, with an incredible turnaround here. You want to talk about a front door cover. Man, Tennessee comes storming back from a 21-0 deficit after 20 minutes into this game, Dan. Where did you watch this game? What was your thought on this game? If you're a Florida fan, how do you feel about this game? Give me some deep cuts.
Watched this from my apartment with Nicole Auerbach and Richard Johnson. And first of all, I don't like fan shaming. That's not a thing that I particularly enjoy if I don't have to. I don't like it when people take pictures of a half-empty stadium before kickoff. But some news outlet did an interview with Tennessee fans, like students, bros, that were leaving at halftime. And they were just talking about, like, the offense isn't clicking. I'm not going to hang around to watch this. I love that. I love that so much. You got everything you deserved by Tennessee being awesome in the second half and you being gone. So my thoughts on this in general are Florida is Ole Miss. Tennessee's the anti-Ole Miss. And when the going gets tough, Josh Dobbs gets going. And that has to be still maddening for Tennessee fans who would like to see their team put together 4 good quarters if their team is going to compete for a conference championship or even a division championship. But my God, the swarm of Tennessee on both sides of the ball in the second half. So it was what? It was 21-3 at halftime and then 35-7 in the second half. Does that sound right?
It was a 38-7 outpouring
in its entirety. Yes.
Yeah, on Tennessee's behalf. Yeah.
I was incredibly impressed by Tennessee's defense in the second half and the way they were able to swarm what looked to be a pretty confident Austin Appleby early, throwing downfield on the Vols.
Yeah.
Florida was stopping Tennessee with everything that they did, both on the ground and through the air. But Tennessee wisely started moving the pocket a little bit for Josh Dobbs. He started standing in there during pressure. When he had a clean pocket, I saw our friends at Pro Football Focus, their college section, when he had a clean pocket, he doesn't like being comfortable. I don't know what that is about Josh Dobbs, but when he was on the run, when he's under pressure, suddenly things started clicking for him. He threw a number of great passes, and we saw the version of Josh Dobbs that we were hoping to see in July or August. The playbook opened up. He threw some nice back shoulder passes. Tennessee was the complete team that we expected. I would hope that they can figure out how to do that in a first or second quarter as their schedule continues.
Josh Dobbs, you're right, came to play. He started 7 for 20 for 84 yards and a pick and didn't look good. Went 9 of 12 for 235 and 4 touchdowns and a pick the rest of the way. He also rushed for 80 big yards and had a rushing score. Good Tennessee is really good. This is like the dilemma. Good Tennessee is really good. Flat Tennessee is really flat. This game, we had 40 minutes of good Tennessee. My fear is, as you pointed out, that at some point, they're not going to be able to flip that switch. All right? They're not going to be able to flip that switch against some of the teams they have coming up. This is a super talented team. If Josh Dobbs can continue to play at a really high level, that's really the big question about this offense. Now, the play calling, still a bit dubious, but if Dobbs can play at this level the rest of the way, this is a super well-rounded team that's got a lot to be excited about. For their part, I thought Florida's defense looked really good, at least initially. Had some big stops inside their own red zone. The second half, they gave up a bunch of big plays and, just a ton of points. The offense wasn't clicking. Austin Appleby no longer eating good in the neighborhood. How did I miss that joke the first time around?
That's a good question.
I think my body is my body is 3% Applebee's from my days in high school. It was all we had to do around here, go out to Applebee's and eat boneless wings. So Florida offensively was hapless. It was almost like they couldn't even run a play. So they need to try and shore that up. Tennessee, though, wins 38-28. This is a big win for them.
Yeah, the fact that Tennessee, they have Georgia, who I don't feel we should be as scared about as it relates to Tennessee and their chances for the East. But it's on the road. It's in Athens next week. But after Georgia's lack thereof, as just related to everything, it's just Georgia's lack thereof against Ole Miss yesterday. That becomes a little less scary, but you could have, letdown potential after winning a rivalry game after 11 straight years of losing. But they're in College Station and then host Alabama in consecutive weeks in mid-October.
It's tough.
So it's both tough and it's both an extraordinary body blow challenge. So quite excited to see how Tennessee starts the next 3 games, because the back half of their schedule, Ty, it's lovely. It is just quaint and lovely. Other than
quaint
Mizzou.
and lovely. Okay.
Yeah, South Carolina, Tennessee Tech, Kentucky, Mizzou, Vandy.
Like a nice bed and breakfast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of Georgia,
guess who just got murdered?
Ole Miss 45, Georgia 14, and their lack thereof. Tell me if you heard this one before.
Please.
Ole Miss fires out of the gates. They build a huge early lead.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is very familiar.
The difference this time is that Ole Miss didn't pull an Ole Miss. At one point in the third quarter, they're up 45-0. They did not surrender that lead. Chad Kelly put up numbers. He was sharp. He committed no costly turnovers. Georgia just couldn't really get it going offensively. Nick Chubb hurt his ankle, went out in the second quarter. Jacob Eason, just 16 of 36 for 137 and a pick. Ole Miss finally got theirs. I'm happy for them. They were able to maintain a lead against a top 15, top 20 caliber opponent. Georgia now goes home next week to square off against a Tennessee team that's got to be riding at least a little bit high after that big win over Florida. And suddenly, as one caller mentioned, and again, I don't think we were able to fit this one in, but it's that time of the year where people start asking the question, is Georgia what we think they are? And the answer here is no. Georgia is not an elite team. They're a very good team. They're going to give opponents in the SEC East plenty of competition. But if this game was a bellwether of things to come for Georgia, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done.
Jacob Eason looked lost constantly, could not throw the ball downfield at all. And listen, Ole Miss has a good defense. They have a good defense that teams have been able to exploit at times this year. Georgia, certainly without Nick Chubb, was not able to come anywhere near doing that. So it's going to be a process for Georgia. I'm willing to believe in them later in the year, next year.
Not now, but later.
I'm not with the Georgia train right now.
And then let's go to another SEC game before we go Big Ten.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about the garbage fire that was LSU Auburn and no touchdowns.
I was going to talk about Texas A&M and Arkansas.
That's the game to me.
Yeah, A&M won by 21. If you ask people what they thought of this game, fans on both sides, they're going to tell you that it was really a lot closer than the score would indicate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Offensively, I thought this was a really good showing for Texas A&M, just from the standpoint of them having to modify the game plan a little bit. The Arkansas secondary was pretty good in this game. It wasn't as if Trevor Knight had a whole lot to work with out there. So what did they do? They modified the game plan a little bit. They relied on 2 long touchdown runs from Trevor Knight and a good rushing effort by him. Also 2 other scores and an outstanding effort from Travion Williams on the ground. If A&M is now able to kind of build in a second dimension to that offense, that makes them all the more frightening, especially in tandem with that defense, which we've been talking about it all year. But that A&M line gave Arkansas a hard time all game long, and they were in beast mode when they had their backs to the wall. 3 separate occasions, there were 1st and goal situations for Arkansas. And instead of giving the Hogs 21 points, they only allowed 3. That's why A&M won this game.
Can we go big picture for a second? For so long, we heard, especially after Johnny Manziel and the entrance of Texas A&M into the SEC, Texas A&M is going to bring like a more open air raid, maybe a dual threat quarterback running an air raid. We're gonna bring that to the SEC. And then at a certain point, Kevin Sumlin met with like the secret SEC gods, and they were like, "No, it's cool that you're like, hey, air raid, yeah, I worked at Houston, and bring in Purdue concepts. No, it's cool, but like, it's probably not going to work forever." And he was like, no, I'm going to keep throwing it around. We're going to throw it 40 or 50 times. We're really going to stretch these SEC defenses that aren't tested by big offenses. And then all of a sudden, Kevin Sumlin has embraced the SEC dark side. Defense and running, defense and running, defense and running. And you know what? He's not wrong to do it. They have Keith Ford, who was sort of the hammer for 2 or 3 quarters. Travion Williams, once a team is worn down, is so fast and so elusive that they become so dangerous. Running quarterback draws with Trevor Knight super wisely, and they executed it perfectly when they saw an open set from Arkansas's defense. Texas A&M has embraced becoming an SEC team, and they did it really well. Trevor Knight was efficient, which is all you can hope for from a good SEC quarterback. With Trevor Knight is looking better and better. Austin Allen, by the way, looked really, really good.
Yeah, he did.
Looked really, really, really good in a losing effort. But yeah, you're right. The story of the game is Texas A&M. It wasn't even bend but don't break, because defensively they were pretty solid all day. They allowed a lot through the air, but it's a good Arkansas offense. But when they didn't break on the goal line, holy hell were they impressive. Just getting into the backfield constantly. The fact that Arkansas couldn't pound anybody at the goal line, let alone Texas A&M, is a huge story. I'm encouraged by Texas A&M. I think the ranking of 10 is about right at this point. I would have them a little bit higher, but I'm still not fully ready. I'm fully ready to say that was an impressive win against Arkansas.
Austin Allen, let me mention him again.
Yeah.
The A&M line gave Arkansas such fits. The Arkansas offensive line just was really overmatched in this one.
Yep.
I think it makes what he did all the more impressive, because he had a great game and tried his best in this one, but just didn't have enough around him. They weren't able to convert some key drives, and that's ultimately why they lose. But good game for Austin Allen. If you're a Hogs fan, you look at the quarterback situation, that's at least one area where I think you feel pretty good about things.
Yes. Running in defense, A&M. Yes.
Let's move on to the Big Ten, Dan.
Yeah.
Wisconsin 30, Michigan State 6. I expected that this game was going to be close.
Okay.
And you did too.
Yeah.
And in the end, it ended up being a good old-fashioned boat race. I know I said some really mean, some really harsh things about Alex Hornibrook.
You did.
He was damn impressive here. First start on the road in East Lansing. At no point in time did it look like anything was moving too quickly for him. Doesn't have a rocket for an arm. All right. Little bit of a pop gun situation. But he gets the ball out on time.
He throws with touch, Ty.
Thank you. He throws with touch, and he has great accuracy. There were a couple throws in this game that were just incredible with how he threaded that needle. You combine that with, I thought, a really solid, gritty effort from Corey Clement, who's been banged up. He scored twice on the ground here. You know, I can't say enough good things about Wisconsin's offense putting up 30 points. And that's all on top of the fact that the real star in this game was Wisconsin's defense, because they forced 4 turnovers, 3 of which were interceptions from Tyler O'Connor, who had a bad day. A really, really solid showing here for Justin Wilcox, who, as we've discussed, his stock has bounced up and down over the last couple seasons. But if you're a Wisconsin fan, it's starting to look more and more like you might actually have some lightning in a bottle here.
Justin Wilcox maybe going on to prove that it wasn't Justin Wilcox problem at USC. It might be a USC problem.
They don't have problems at USC.
Yeah, this game, I think the word that I would describe, I would use to describe this game offensively for Wisconsin and maybe even defensively for Wisconsin, timely. Alex Hornibrook was so good on third downs, made huge throws, put the ball where it needed to be when they couldn't run the ball. I think Corey Clement, 23 rushes for 54 yards, and he had a 20-something yard run in there. So it was just him running into the Michigan State wall, but doing good things at the goal line. Wisconsin just living in the backfield against Michigan State. Totally dominated Michigan State's offensive line. For the most part, was able to shut down Michigan State on the ground. Tyler O'Connor looked so lost for most of this game.
He did.
Wisconsin at this point becomes a very dangerous team. They have just an incredibly difficult schedule with Michigan and Ohio State. I think Michigan's this coming week.
Yep.
But Wisconsin is looking like the best possible version of themselves, which is incredibly impressive given our thoughts on the schedule and all of the changes with Dave Aranda leaving in the offseason, with a new quarterback situation, with, a line getting healthier and sort of figuring out their rhythms going into the season. Wisconsin is living their best life, which is amazing to see.
Live your life, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Michigan, the opponent for Wisconsin next week. Boy, did they take it to Penn State.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
49-10. They rushed for 326 yards and 6 touchdowns. A bunch of big plays in the running game. They outgained Penn State 515 to 191. Superior pretty much across the board here, especially along the defensive line. They sacked Trace McSorley 5 times in this game. Here is what is of note on the Penn State side. All right. I'm going to shoot you straight because this is an honest program. Penn State is basically playing without linebackers at this point. They have no linebackers. They had injuries coming into this game, but then Brandon Smith got tossed on the targeting call, which is questionable. Then they had another guy who came in and instantly tore his ACL. You combine that now with all the attrition that we've talked about along the defensive line and elsewhere, and it ain't exactly a firewall along that front seven. Penn State's in a bit of trouble now moving forward. And I have real questions about whether or not this team even goes 6-6.
So the encouraging thing about Penn State in this game, I was just going to leave that area.
Oh, you're asking for one.
I was just going to leave it blank. Somebody has to say that out loud and put that into the universe. Saquon Barkley, caught the ball pretty well.
He's Penn State's only player in a game like this where they're able to take away the pass, where they're able to go at Trace McSorley, Saquon Barkley had 136 total yards. He is far and away Penn State's best offensive talent. And it's unfortunate because there's just not enough around him to really enable him to live his best life.
Yeah. There is a phrase that Wilton Speight used after this game that is the most, okay, I shouldn't say the most, but one of the most demoralizing turns of phrase to hear after a game. And at one point, I think he said Michigan ran a variation of the same play 8 times in a row. That's not great, Penn State. That's not the best. And especially in that second half, Michigan was just running off tackle, and whether it was Devion Smith, whether it was Ty Isaac, whoever it was, they weren't getting touched for 8 yards.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the linebacker injuries. And listen, I consider myself to be an expert in watching teams with horrible linebackers. That's just sort of what I study.
Right.
And here's another phrase you don't like. Actually, this phrase is something that you either love to hear or hate to hear with nothing in between. Yeah, he's a walk-on.
Yeah.
So it's either like, yeah, J.J. Watt's a walk-on. How incredible is that? Or, yeah, he is a walk-on.
Please tell me that Joey Julius is a Heisman Trophy contender.
Is he the kicker?
He's the kicker, yeah.
Ah, man, Ryan's saying kickers are not allowed.
What?
I think it can be sort of like, you know how they give an honorary Oscar out to somebody who's just been a contributor to the industry? I think it would be good to give.
Is it just linemen?
It is just linemen, just offensive and defensive linemen.
I was not made aware of this.
Yeah, if it were up to me, but it is Ryan and I comprise the Heisman board. So,
well, it sounds like it is kind of up to you then.
I only have half a vote, and
oh my God,
Ryan's more organized, and it would fall apart without him. So that's how. I mean, we will. He is worth mentioning at the ceremony. Large kickers do matter.
Well, as you know, Dan, not all ingredients are created equally.
True.
Fresh, high-quality ingredients taste better and are better for you, so it's important to know where your food comes from. We have both used Blue Apron. I cooked a number of meals. I know you did as well. They sent us fresh, vibrant ingredients. They gave us down to the second instructions on how to cook these delightful meals. Blue Apron will deliver to you no matter where you are located. They have an established partnership with over 150 local farms, fisheries, and ranchers across the good old U.S. of A. As a result, your seafood, it is sustainably sourced and under standards developed in partnership with the Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch.
Nice.
Beef is raised humanely. Chickens are free range. Regenerative farming practices are used for produce. Blue Apron can be delivered to you no matter where you are in the continental U.S. of A. And 99.5% of food deserts. Because Blue Apron ships the exact amount of food that you need for each recipe, they are also reducing waste. So here's all you got to do, Dan. If you're interested, check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals for free with shipping by going to blueapron.com/solid. Some of the meals available in September, I know you're waiting for this.
Yeah.
Paprika spiced shrimp and cheddar grits with tomato and sweet corn.
Nice.
You've got eggplant and chickpea tangine with Islander pepper and tomato and couscous.
Couscous.
And summer udon noodle salad with cherry tomatoes, corn, and summer sweet pepper. If you're interested in that, go to blueapron.com/solid. You will love how it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so don't wait. Again, 3 meals for free shipping, blueapron.com/solid. Blue Apron, it is a better way to cook.
Ty, it's important to think about sustainable resources, and that's why I think we should move on to LSU Auburn.
Okay.
Sustainably and consistently disappointing.
All right, so Auburn wins this game 18-13.
You want to run down your favorite touchdowns scored in this game? Let's spitball these.
All I'm going to say about this game is this.
1 touchdown.
There was an Auburn fan who was so drunk and happy that they won this game that he inadvertently lit one of those oak trees on fire at Toomer's Corner. Did you see that?
I hope it was inadvertent. I saw the security footage and it was very strange.
So someone lit the tree on fire after they had rolled it with toilet paper. They're just allowed to do that again starting this year because they planted some new trees down there.
Mm-hmm.
I was disappointed by this game, and not for the obvious reasons.
So is America, Ty.
It's entirely self-serving, but you might remember I predicted that LSU would score exactly 19 points.
Oh, that's right. You were right there. The altar of tie.
For a fleeting moment, the altar of tie had its moment.
Glowing.
And then the rest went back, and, Danny Etling didn't get the playoff in time, and it's half credit. I'm going to give myself half credit.
Mm-hmm.
You called Auburn here. What did you like about Auburn if you have to pick something?
They're not coached by Les Miles and Cam Cameron.
Okay, that's good.
That is a very positive thing to say about Auburn. No, it was the fact that it was a decent defense at home, and I don't know if that was the most correct thing I've ever said, but it turned out to be true. Their defense was good. They largely shut down LSU. Danny Etling had an early touchdown pass. Leonard Fournette got hurt, which is, God, I just hate that so much. It's such a bummer. But LSU was able to move the ball on the ground, but not able to do anything in the red zone. And Sean White did not throw an interception.
He looked pretty good.
He completed more than half of his passes. He threw the ball downfield some. Not that Auburn was able to complete drives, but they were able to do enough at home to stay alive with the clock counting down to 0 rather quickly.
Just a very clinical win for Auburn.
Yes. It was, you know what? I was watching this game and what it felt like, and this was on one of the smaller screens. It felt like you could accurately, if you had to recap this game, Auburn won in penalty kicks.
Yeah.
That was basically what it was. It was garbage. Nobody scored. It was 0-0 at the end of regulation, and Auburn won in penalty kicks 5-3, whatever it is. So that's how it finished, and you survive in advance. And now Les Miles is, would you give him a 50% shot of keeping his job with the schedule here on out?
No way. No way.
What is there to like?
The defense is really good for LSU.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. 4 games this year. They've allowed 16, 13, 20, and 18.
Yeah.
That's more than enough to win. The bottleneck here is the offense, and specifically quarterback and the play calling, because there's a ton of talent. There is NFL talent on this offense. Not just Leonard Fournette, but guys out wide. They should be playing better than this. And I know it sounds like a broken record. We've been saying it for the last 4 years now, but at some point, that's got to fall on the coaching staff.
Dave Aranda is going to buy the biggest house in South Bend that you have ever seen.
What's interesting about Dave Aranda is his contract is not tied to the head football coach.
Okay.
They have hired him sort of as a separate, independent, Jim Chaney-ish contractor.
Sure.
And he will probably remain there unless he gets a better offer from someone else. But I wouldn't even give Les Miles a 40% chance of keeping his job. It has really been so disappointing early on. LSU has fallen so woefully short of expectations. To put up 13 points against Auburn, that is not good enough. I would say at this point, LSU is probably putting in inquiries to whoever is Tom Herman's agent, as we heard on the Reverbs.
Yeah. I mean, Clemson scored, 19 against Auburn? So let's not go crazy. But yeah, I think you're right. And I was talking to Bill Connolly this morning. You know who's the angel of death in the SEC? Once you lose to them, that'd be Missouri. Who does LSU play next week? Oh, man, they play Mizzou. They play Mizzou with at least a heartbeat of an offense, and that could be it. That legitimately could be it. If they score 10, 13, 14 points against Mizzou, and this is a decent enough Mizzou team. Not great.
Did they fire him mid-season?
If the offense, listen, they're starting Danny Etling, a Purdue transfer, who has done a couple of good things, but nothing special. They have Leonard Fournette hurt, and they've got a really good defense that they're wasting. I don't know what you can do this season with or without Les Miles. So I don't know the terms of his contract about being fired mid-season, but I don't see much happen in the way of LSU. I'm pulling up their schedule. They got Missouri. They're at Florida, which is they could win that game ugly. They could win both of those games ugly. There's no reason that they can't win both of those games 13-10, 10-9, right?
Great.
I'm talking best case scenario.
Great. If the best case scenario is a 13 or 10-9 win, shouldn't you just fire him now?
If I'm LSU and I am convinced that moving on is the only thing left to do, I would probably wait till the end of the season. Their final game is, I think, the Thanksgiving weekend against A&M.
No.
That still gives you a big jump on getting a new coach, whoever it may be. And yeah, I think he's earned the season if they keep playing like this.
All right, let's go to the Pac-12.
Let's.
This is a night game. Stanford 22, UCLA 13. We mentioned the front door cover scenario. Early on in the game.
Oh, man.
Early on in the podcast. This was just a legendary front door cover.
Yeah, it
for
really
Stanford.
was.
Favored by 3.5. They're leading 16-13 on the last play of the game. Josh Rosen drops back, gonna throw a Hail Mary. He is sacked and fumble. Solomon Thomas, the 6'3", 273-pound defensive end for Stanford, picks it up and instead of just falling on it, rumbles all the way to the end zone. I have to believe that gets him to the front of the line in the Heisman Trophy voting. Stanford wins by 9 and covers. Dan, how about that?
Unexpected, given the first 3.9 quarters of this game. It was a good Dumb and Dumber quote game, because right when I thought Ryan Burns couldn't get any dumber running the quarterback position for Stanford, running that offense, he goes and completely redeems
himself. Yeah.
Yeah, he had something like 60 or 70 yards all game long. And then, David Shaw decided to punt it on 4th and short and give his team only 2 minutes to drive the length of the field. It was like a 70-yard drive. Ryan Burns just casually leads them down the field and throws a pitch-perfect throw to, it's Arcega-Whiteside, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Arcega-Whiteside, whatever, in the corner of the end zone over an outstretched UCLA corner. And it was just like, and I tweeted this during the game, like it just felt like a Kevin Hogan game where everything is ugly, everything is looking gross, and then he's just going to drag this Stanford team to the finish line, and that's what Ryan Burns did. Christian McCaffrey had a decent game. I think he only had about 150 all-purpose yards, which is fair to say with him only. But Stanford survived, I would say, a pretty incredible UCLA defensive effort.
Oh, yeah.
All game long.
They didn't do much for like 3.5 quarters, Dan.
Yeah. It was, and that's probably what makes the loss all the more disappointing for Bruin fans. Josh Rosen was pretty good, didn't throw any picks, made a couple of boneheaded decisions that ultimately didn't cost them too badly, but led them on a single touchdown drive in the first quarter and got shut down. And I really do think that UCLA offense, the line is disappointing, and they really miss even like Thomas Duarte. They don't have somebody that Josh Rosen can count on consistently to get 3 yards past the marker on 3rd and 7 or something like that. They just don't have the guy to stretch the field. And UCLA playing in that new pro style system when they're trying to sort of to be Stanford South or whatever they're trying to do, it's just not coming together all that quickly without a pass catcher.
Josh Rosen, by the way, he ain't quitting. He says we're 1,000,000% going to see Stanford again.
Okay.
So he's not quitting. Yeah, he's confident. We got some great calls about this game, and I couldn't fit him in. We had one guy that compared Stanford's offense to a closet filled of half-dead Roombas, but that Christian McCaffrey's Roomba was the only one getting fresh batteries.
Yeah.
And then we had this one here regarding UCLA. I thought this was perfect.
Basically, UCLA football games come in 3 flavors: wins that feel like losses, losses that feel like losses, and losses to Stanford. It's not very rewarding.
Not very rewarding. There you go.
Tennis school.
Stanford wins 22-13. Talk to me about...
What do you want to know?
We probably should have paid more attention to this game in our previews, because there really was some look-ahead potential for Washington with Stanford on deck. Mm-hmm. You did mention that
Short
Tucson's...
week, right? They play Friday night.
Sure.
Yeah.
You did mention that Tucson's a weird place to play at night against a quirky offense, and that Rich Rod usually takes someone down each year.
Mm-hmm.
It was apparent in this game to me that Washington's defense is much better equipped to go up against a team like a Stanford than mobile quarterback,
a more straight ahead team,
option spread kind of team like in Arizona. Brandon Dawkins' mobility was an issue in this game against an Oregon, against an Arizona State. I could see this maybe being an issue.
The big thing about Arizona is they turn the ball over too much against a really good Washington team. They came out in the third quarter after running all over the Huskies in the first half. And I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch J.J. Taylor, the backup running back for Arizona. He's tiny. He's like 5'6", like 180 pounds. Like he's really small, but cuts on a complete dime and was basically juking out every single Washington defender, stretching the field. Arizona really took advantage of Washington having no answer on the ground. But coming out in the third quarter, Arizona came out. It was just like punt, fumble, punt. Like they just couldn't figure things out. And it's not going to do it against Washington, even at home, even at night. And Arizona gave themselves a shot. Big fourth quarter, they score a couple touchdowns, they push to overtime, but Washington rode Lavon Coleman, who has been sort of a revelation for them and deepening their backfield. He outplayed Myles Gaskin on his own team.
Yeah.
And I think the first play of overtime got down to the 1-yard line, and that was sort of it. And the Huskies survive, tie, as great champions do.
Yeah,
so.
Sure.
A great effort from Arizona. Brandon Dawkins was great at times for the Wildcats, but Arizona's defense just is not there talent-wise yet to sort of finish off teams or adjust to teams as good as Washington genuinely is.
Yeah, Washington's offense did not finish drives in the second half. And that was a big part of the reason why this one went to overtime. Washington won 35-28 here. I don't read too deeply into this game. It's weird. It's on the road. It's at night, but I am calling it now. Washington is going to have their hands full with either Oregon or Arizona State, maybe both. I think that's a matchup that doesn't necessarily work
I've
for
never
them.
heard of that first team.
Yeah, right. We'll get to them.
Is that an expansion candidate?
We'll get to them. Let's stay in the Pac-12 here and talk about the earlier game this week between Utah and USC. Big game here for Troy Williams. He's Utah's quarterback, 273 total touchdowns in a comeback effort here. He connects up with Tim Patrick with just 16 seconds left to give Utah the W. Really a confounding situation now for USC. I thought they looked better in this game on offense because Sam Darnold didn't show any signs of being afraid of the moment against a good defense in Utah. He looked pretty good.
I really liked watching Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
You're right.
The offense as a whole looked a lot more in rhythm. But really just a blown save here in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
USC's now 1-3. They're in some trouble. Take a look at the schedule. Go and pull up their schedule.
I'm pulling it up right now.
There are very few guarantees on this schedule for USC the rest of the way. And so again, like with Penn State, it's fair to ask, is this team going to qualify for a bowl?
So they're 1-3 at the moment.
Yeah.
The last time they beat a Power 5 team was UCLA last November, Thanksgiving weekend, November 28th. So it's been a bit. It has been a bit. They've lost 5 straight games against Power 5 teams. Clay Helton had the offense operating at a higher level. Dory Jackson had the nice return to start the Utah game. Justin Davis ran all over the Utes. But to me, even with USC's struggle in this game at home, Utah starting that final drive on their 7-yard line and playing fearlessly, and Kyle Whittingham just showing enormous stones as they converted fourth down after fourth down, as they took shots downfield. It was, and I know our own Alex Kirshner at SB Nation wrote a piece about this, it was a clinic in fearless football, and I loved watching it.
Clay Helton now is in a situation where, again, 1-3. USC hasn't necessarily shown a whole lot of improvement across the board, though offense looked a little bit better. USC has Arizona State next week.
They do have Arizona State, who won a shootout and have a really good quarterback, at least in terms of scaring the bejesus out of teams, and Manny Wilkins. They've got, Arizona State, Colorado, Arizona, Cal. So they have good offense in October.
Is there potential here that Arizona State could drive a stake into the heart of another USC coach?
I think he gets more than 5 games?
It's
I think
incredible.
He gets more than 5 games.
It's incredible to be asking, but I think it needs to be asked.
But you're right. It's a different situation than something like Les Miles, because Les Miles has earned a certain degree of respect. Whereas Clay Helton, as likable as he seems, USC looks like a mess. And it's not just losing close games, it's losing games in unorganized, sloppy, and hapless ways like they've done thus far.
Yeah.
Utah was much better. Sam Darnold, it always annoys me when it's like so clear that this is the better candidate for a quarterback that replaces the starter. That's sort of maddening, but you're not wrong to bring this up. But every coach deserves a season unless things on a life level, like unless the team is completely quitting, unless you're getting punched in the face like the rumor of Clay Helton. I don't think it happened, but unless things are deteriorating from the inside in an unsurmountable way, I think Clay Helton deserves the season.
All right. We mentioned ASU. We'll discuss them quickly. God bless you if you stayed up to watch this game.
Yeah. Points.
Late night with Mike Patrick and Ed Cunningham, man. Cal was up 24-10 at half. Arizona's offense didn't look that great. And then all of a sudden, 31 points in the fourth quarter, for ASU. Manny Wilkins really turns it on, scores 2 late touchdowns. ASU had 2 pick sixes and a returned onside kick for a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Again, ASU's on the road next week against USC. We will see what happens there. We know that they can score points, and that could potentially be an issue for a USC team. That, again, as we just said, is a little bit of reeling right now.
The unspoken battle in a losing effort QB of 2016 is so fierce and so heated. Although I think I might give the nod to Davis Webb.
Davis Webb in a losing effort with a very nice game here, Dan.
Yeah, 478 and 5 touchdowns. Did throw 2 picks, but Davis Webb's going to put up 400 yards on everybody. He's going to put 400 on in the big game against Stanford. He's that good.
Speaking of yards and points, let's go to the Big 12. Baylor 35, Oklahoma State 24. If you're going to see Oklahoma State, Dan, just prepare now to burn an entire Saturday. Another weather delay in this one. It's unbelievable. What has been the time of game for their last 2 games combined?
It feels like what you'd run a marathon in if you suffer a number of debilitating injuries.
Or if you walked
I sprained my ankle, I broke some ribs, I was concussed, I got vertigo, but I finished in 11 hours and 17 minutes.
This is a pretty good game, I thought. Fewer points than I expected, but still over 1,000 yards total offense, because obviously. I especially enjoyed Chris Platt's 89-yard touchdown catch in the third quarter.
Okay.
Did you see that play where
I didn't. What happened?
He zoomed past an Oklahoma State defender like he was the yellow car in RC Pro-Am.
Nice.
And just right into the into the end zone. A beautiful pass from Seth Russell. Look, Baylor's third down defense left a lot on the field. They couldn't do much on the ground, but they are unbeaten, and this was a nice win here. At what point and how seriously do we take Baylor now after 4 weeks?
Probably more seriously than anybody else in that conference, though I'm not fully willing to write off Oklahoma. I was talking to our pal Bill Connolly about this on Wake Up College Football this morning. Oklahoma's lost to Houston on a kick 6, and they lost to an Ohio State team who is better than pretty much everybody in the country. So not willing to fully write off OU, but they do get that game in Norman. So that becomes a little bit more difficult. But Baylor at this point appears to be, even with some struggles running the ball and starting games out quickly, the most complete team in the conference, or at least the least flawed, if that's any different.
Yeah. I mean, Oklahoma State turned it over 4 times. They had 41 minutes of possession and couldn't translate that into more than just 24 points. So that says something about Baylor's defense and what they've done. Again, not great on third down, but otherwise they did what needed to be done here. They win the game 35-24. They move on in their Big 12 schedule. We shall see what they do the rest of the way. Another one, this was actually a neutral site game, which we botched on our preview show.
It happens.
Weird neutral site game between West Virginia and BYU being played at FedEx Field in Washington, D.C. The good news, if there is any, the quest for 20 points is finally over. It is over.
It almost didn't happen. They stumbled at 19 going for 2 and not getting it.
Almost didn't happen. I question whether or not it counts. It was a neutral site game.
So BYU is yet to score 20 points in the College Stadium.
That's right.
Okay, making sure.
So our prop bet, for what it's worth, was neck and neck. Because you might remember on the Wednesday show, we said, what's going to happen first? BYU with 20 points or Notre Dame with a sack. And BYU had 19 points in the third quarter because of that missed 2-point conversion. And Notre Dame still had 0 sacks. We were getting tweeted like crazy about this because it was neck and neck. Finally, Notre Dame got a sack from Niles Morgan, and alas, all was over here. Notre Dame won that side. But West Virginia, 35-32 over BYU. They are undefeated.
Secretly decent ears?
Yeah, could be.
I mean, Skylar Howard had a nice enough day. Threw a pick, but they were able to move the ball on the ground. Impressed with Justin Crawford. Shelton Gibson looks to be at least at this point, secretly, I hope not so secretly, one of the better receivers in the country after some big plays. And West Virginia almost let the game slip out of their grasp, but pulled a game out on a weird neutral site field and move on. And yeah, I think secretly decent at this point. They have Kansas State and Texas Tech in the coming couple weeks, and they have, I think it's a bye between those two games. But if they can survive Texas Tech's offense, they're not, the schedule was particularly awful last year, but they're on the road at Okie State, who is at the very least flawed. They're on the road against Texas, who they should be able to score on. And they have Iowa State on the road. So they have Oklahoma and Baylor at home. So, and TCU at home. So it's the flop year, and the schedule's pretty great for secretly decent West Virginia.
So here's what we're going to do now as we start running short on time, although this podcast could end up being a little bit longer today.
It's okay. It's fine, Ty.
I am going to start running through rapid fire.
Okay, let's run through
a number of the games here. Let's go to the ACC. Louisville 59, Marshall 28, I believe. Another casual 7-touchdown effort for Lamar Jackson. 417 and 5 touchdowns through the air.
25 and 4 games?
I've lost count.
That is many touchdowns.
Louisville's offense is absurd right now. 690 total yards in this game. If you want to split hairs, they had 12 penalties, 3 turnovers, but so what? They ran it up on Marshall. They are now on a collision course with Clemson. You may have heard some of the angered Georgia Tech callers who dialed 408 Verbal 1. Clemson's defense was dominant in a win over Georgia Tech, 26-7. They held Georgia Tech to just 124 total yards. A good game, I thought, for Deshaun Watson, who showed off why so many in the NFL are excited about what he could do at the next level. He really did showcase his skill set. The offense, I'd still like to see more from it. I still expect more from it.
Yeah.
But, with all that being said, I thought this was a better showing by Clemson.
Yeah, I would say so. Their defense is ridiculous.
Florida State 55, USF 35. Dan, what do you think?
Oh, beautiful for spacious. America's team did not come through.
No, they didn't.
I think it was nice, especially with everything that Florida State has been dealing with injury-wise, that they were able to get back on track and make the top of the ACC race more interesting. Certainly, they've already lost to Louisville in embarrassing fashion, but they still have Clemson. There's still a lot of time. Florida State has Miami, which is... Miami's looking really good thus far. They had the week off.
Top 15 team.
Yeah. So Florida State has the opportunity to bounce back in a meaningful way from the embarrassment of the Louisville game. DeAndre Francois was very efficient. Dalvin Cook only had 267 yards, which I guess that's all right. And Florida State looked like Florida State. Good to see.
North Carolina 37. Pitt 36, Dan. Monster game here. From General
Brutal.
Mitch Trubisky, as someone dialed in, and we're going to roll with that. 453 and 5 touchdowns through the air. A hearty effort for Ryan Switzer. 16 catches for 208. A great back and forth game. Maybe the best game in terms of pure watchability all day long. North Carolina didn't lead in this game until the very final play, which was a touchdown pass from Mitch Trubisky to Bug Howard. Pitt needs to fix that pass defense. In the last 2 games now against Oklahoma State and UNC, they've given up 993 combined passing yards. They need to fix that in a hurry. Pat Narduzzi, he's got some work to do. For their part, UNC still having some trouble running the ball despite having Elijah Hood, but a nice win for them, 37-36 here.
Should also mention the ACC that Virginia Tech is the best ACC team of all time because they pummeled ECU, which is an impossible thing for ACC teams to do.
This is true. They win 54-17. Virginia wins 49-35 over Central Michigan.
Hey, look at that. Good for you, Hoos.
We also had wins by Boston College, Syracuse, and Wake. How about that? Wake, 33-28.
Wake?
28, yeah, over Indiana. 4-0 Wake. The claw fence getting purred up.
Duke and Indiana, questionable wins before the season for Wake, and now they have them.
All right, let's jump around here a little bit more. We forgot to mention that TCU, Iowa State, and K-State all won in the Big 12. In the SEC, Mississippi State actually trailed 14-13 at half. against UMass. Yeah, they turned it on in the second half. Fred Ross, 8 catches, 126 yards, and 2 touchdowns, Dan, for Mississippi State. You know what we call that, don't you?
What do we call that?
I believe we call that a Freducation.
A Freducation is what we call it.
Mississippi State wins 47-35. Alabama wins 48-0 over Kent State. That after Damian Harris sprained his ankle on the opening drive. He didn't come back in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, a walk in the park for Alabama. A huge edge in offense in favor of the Tide. Both Jalen Hurts and Blake Barnett played in this game.
Yeah, nice defensive effort. I know it was against Northwestern, but Nebraska building on the Oregon win, 24-13 over Northwestern on the road. It's a game they, I guess, in other years against Northwestern could drop, but a nice survival game for Nebraska, complete game in as much as it can be. I'm trying to think what else jumped out to me in terms of game. I mean, Houston slaughtered Texas State.
Yeah.
I think that's the week. I think that is the week in games.
We had Kentucky and Missouri and Vandy winning in overtime as well in the SEC. Anything happened in the Pat League?
No, but the Bowdoin Polar Bears got murdered.
All right, Dan, let's get this ad out of the way here before we get to our final 2 tire fires to discuss.
Sure.
If you're interested in going to college football games or other sporting events or concerts or Lord knows whatever else, everything about SeatGeek is designed to make life easier for you. They do all the price comparison work that you need by searching multiple ticket sites and ensuring you and your desires get the best possible deal. They do all the work. They save you time and money. They want to help you get the most bang for your buck. That's why every ticket on SeatGeek is given a grade based on value. So you're immediately going to see right in front of you any underpriced seats that might be out there. They will find the best deal for you that fits your budget. Right now, all of our listeners can get a $20 rebate off their first SeatGeek purchase. All you need to do is download the free SeatGeek app. Then once you have it, go to settings, add a promo code, and enter the code SOLID, SOLID. Nice. They're going to send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase, Dan. That's all you need to do. It's very straightforward. It is a free app. Download SeatGeek today. Enter the promo code SOLID by going into your settings, SOLID.
Easy.
And they will pay you $20 after you make a purchase. That's SeatGeek for you. It's
free
straightforward.
Money.
It's simple. It's the best way to get tickets to see your favorite team play. Should we do this? Should we just do this and get this over with?
Yeah, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Why don't you go first, Dan? What happened to Oregon this week?
Oregon played almost exactly like they've been playing all year. And that's a disappointing thing because usually you'd like to see teams improve. Oregon lost to Colorado. Not only did Oregon lose to Colorado, Oregon lost to Colorado's backup quarterback. And as somebody used to seeing a prepared, accurate, dual threat quarterback take advantage of an unprepared defense in Austin Stadium, which I have experience with that. It was nice to see it again yesterday, just with that script flipped, just with Steven Montez filling that role, completing like 68 or 70% of his passes, running for 130 yards, throwing for over 300, throwing 3 touchdowns. Oregon's defense did get better in the second half. I think it was like 26 points in the first half. They tightened things up to 15 points allowed in the second half. But listen, if you are listening to this show and you have any interest in running a successful quarterback draw, may I suggest taking your efforts to Eugene, Oregon, because you will succeed. Oregon starts the game off slow, but it certainly felt like they had a wave in them to come at Colorado at a certain point, which they did in the third quarter. They put up 21 points, both through the air and on the ground. They're succeeding. But at the end of the game, they both punt in a shorter yardage situation and then drive down the field to win the game. And Dakota Prukop throws his first interception of the season, which is both surprising and not surprising. It's surprising because He's not a particularly good passer, but it's not surprising given he doesn't throw any sort of dangerous throws. He doesn't particularly like taking chances, which has hurt any sort of rhythm this Oregon offense can get into consistently. So I don't put this game on Prukop. I put it on the defense. I put it on the coaches for offensive decision-making. It was nice to see Tony Brooks-James have another good day with Royce Freeman out, but this Oregon team just doesn't have the potential that other teams have had, and it's sad to, Dakota Prukop doesn't step into his throws. That is just a thing. His footwork is, for lack of a better term, cement garbage. And they ask him to throw touch passes with cement garbage footwork. And I really wanted him to succeed. He's an average quarterback, and that's okay. Oregon needs to figure out a way, if they want to salvage this season on any level, and by that I mean getting to El Paso to play Notre Dame.
That's right. The Sunver Bowl.
In the Sunver Bowl. They need to figure out a way to put him in a position to succeed with his limitations. And thus far, they've struggled to do that. So this morning was, traditionally speaking, Ty, I was thinking about this because I hate myself. We wear black to funerals.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to know with Oregon and their color combinations. Do we wear black with yellow accents, green accents? Are we wearing orange dress shoes? I can never tell. So Mark Helfrich will survive the season. He's earned it. He's got a contract that makes that probably to be the case, even with Phil Knight's money and Pat Kilkenny's money. But, man, does this look like a disorganized mess.
Just killing time to bring Scott Frost back?
Just killing time to bring... Listen, Oregon fans are all of a sudden like, hey, Tom Herman's coming to Eugene.
Yeah.
Nah, he's not.
Nah.
Cross your fingers for Brian Harsin. I don't know. Oregon has Wazoo, who will throw all over this defense. They've got Washington. Granted, it's in Autzen. Who knows? Washington showed some vulnerability, but I don't think Oregon can take advantage. They've got Davis Webb. They've got Manny Wilkins. They've got the carcass of USC on the road. They've got Stanford and Christian McCaffrey. They go to Utah, which Salt Lake City is. If you are a team with deficiencies and issues, Utah will perform surgery on you.
Yep.
And they go to Oregon State. So Oregon's playing like a 6-6 team.
Congratulations, by the way, to Colorado.
And that's the other big thing.
This was a big win for Colorado.
Yeah. So the actual story in this game, well, I would argue Oregon slipping as a power is a story. But the good thing is I love that Colorado had this win. I love that Mike McIntyre made this move. I love that Steven Montez was prepared to go to Autzen and do this. Is such a cool moment for Colorado. Good for them. They looked great.
Yeah, absolutely. I watched this game. I don't get Pac-12 Network here, but I watched it. I streamed it on the Chromecast using someone else's password.
Obviously.
Got to listen to our friend Yogi Roth call the game. So it was an enjoyable experience, especially since I didn't really have a dog in the fight. And we've had so many Colorado fans call in over the years that...
Shout out to Rich Orman, by the way.
Yeah, shout out to Rich and all the other Colorado people who have called in and listened over the years. But this is a really nice win for them. And like you, I was happy that they were able to win. 41-38 was the final score.
41-38. What do you think the line is? Colorado Duke right now, neutral field.
I mean, I could probably figure it out. I think Colorado would most likely be favored.
6.5, Colorado? Do you take that action?
I would probably take Colorado, yeah.
Yeah, so would I. All right. Well, that's our show.
Yeah.
Ty, walk me through the 2.5 quarters of this game that you watched.
I left. I was watching this game with Mama H. I left with 6.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Oh, 3.5. Okay. Notre Dame Duke.
Yeah. I left with 6.5 left. I drove home. I listened to Don Criqui call this one on my XM radio. They put all the games on channel 129, the Catholic channel. And I listened to Notre Dame lose that way.
God bless.
Here is the sound clip that I pulled that accurately reflects my opinion of Notre Dame right now.
We got no food. We got no jobs. Our pets' heads are falling off.
Our pets' heads are falling off, Dan.
Yep.
They're falling off.
You know whose fault it is?
Whose?
Unenthusiastic Notre Dame players.
They're falling off. They've fallen off already.
They have no energy. They have no enthusiasm.
This defense is a tire fire. Good hell. We have made the joke. How many times have we made the joke about not having any sacks. All right, they finally get one in this game on a big third down. It's a big third down stop, okay?
Yep.
Big third down stop. But otherwise, no push from the line. The secondary is both super young and horribly disorganized. Okay. And they can't freaking tackle. Okay? I posted this on Twitter.
Oh, would you hate being an Oregon fan?
Oh, I'd hate it. But in a way, I kind of am, aren't I?
Yeah, you are.
All right, two schools of thought out there right now regarding this defense, because defense is a problem. I will get to the offense momentarily, but in terms of defense, there's two schools of thought. There is that Notre Dame lost a lot, and they're still trying to find their new playmakers, and the guys out there just aren't executing. Hey, what's Brian Van Gorder supposed to do? They're just not playing well. They got to play better. It's not his fault. That seems to be the approach that Brian Kelly's taking in basically assuming no responsibility for what transpired over the last couple weeks. That's A. B is that Brian Van Gorder should be fired, and fired immediately, or sacked immediately if you want to be the guy who called in to our Reverb line. I would say this. While initially I thought I was on the A side of the coin here, right? Guys just aren't playing well, and they're not. I think that argument goes out the window when you look at how well Notre Dame has recruited in recent years. This is not a program that has had difficulty bringing in talent. They haven't gotten talent at all the positions where they'd like it, but still, they're bringing in talent year in and year out. This is a top 10 team in terms of recruiting. So you can't make the case that these guys just aren't good enough when the guys you're recruiting are your guys. They're 4- and 5-star guys, and you trot them out there and they're getting burnt. And not only can they not tackle, and are they trying to grab everybody with their arms and throw them down from the shoulder pads, but they don't know where they're supposed to be. They just don't know where they're supposed to be, Dan. All right?
Yeah.
So that's a problem, and to some degree, that's got to fall on the coaching staff. Now, Brian Kelly, he says, well, I'm pleased with the way we coach this game. Guess what? The rest of us aren't. The rest of us aren't. Now he's throwing everyone under the bus, right? He's throwing Kaiser under the bus now. It's incredible, right? Someone asked him, well, could we see Brandon Wimbush, which is preposterous to me.
Right.
And he's saying, well, it's not out of the question. Unless he can play defense, it should be out of the question. All right? He's throwing everybody under the bus, Kaiser included, every position up for grabs. I like the mentality, but come on, man. Come on. At some point, you got to look in the mirror and say, what are we doing wrong here? Because if you're Notre Dame, you shouldn't lose to a team like Duke. Duke lost to both Wake and Northwestern. Notre Dame, you should not lose to Duke. I'm sorry. This just shouldn't be happening week in and week out. And look at their schedule. Look at their schedule the rest of the way.
I'm going to pull it up.
All right. Syracuse, maybe no longer a sure thing.
They'll beat Syracuse.
I'm not so sure.
Okay.
At NC State, maybe not a sure thing.
They'll beat NC State.
There's a Stanford game and a Miami game and a Virginia Tech game and a USC game still on the schedule. This is a 3-loss team right now. How many are we talking about by the end of the year? The Solid Verb Bowl could happen in El Paso. And I'm telling you right now, if that game comes to fruition, and if it is Notre Dame and Oregon, I'm not going to the national championship game. I don't care. We're going to scrap together all the spare change we can find.
Yeah.
We're going to run a commercial during the Sun Bowl, and we're going to spend a nice little weekend in El Paso, just you and me.
Here's what 2016 is, Ty, in a nutshell. I mean, this is as it relates to Notre Dame, but just in general. You look at the rest of Notre Dame's schedule, and listen, Army could be tough, but at least they have USC. That's 2016. I would also like to say this, Ty. We've always done this show from afar. At first, I was in LA, you were in Pennsylvania. Now I'm in New York, and you're still in Pennsylvania. We've always done the show from geographically distant places to a certain extent. But until week 4 of 2016, we met halfway, physically, geographically in Nebraska. But until week 4 of 2016, we really haven't met halfway from a football perspective. But now here we are.
We are like completing the merger at this point.
We're atop the college football Empire State Building just saying, hey, so your team can't tackle? Same.
Right.
So
who's
your
jumping
coaches,
first?
We're not jumping, Ty.
Okay.
We are just sharing a moment.
Right.
So both of our teams can't tackle. Both of our teams generally develop good quarterback play and can't get it anymore. Both of our teams make weird decisions, game planning, and lose to inferior opponents. Cool. Well, we are merging into Ty Dan Ruben Brandt.
Does Oregon play with any emotion? Because that's the one thing that Brian Kelly said that I agree with. This Notre Dame team is like dead.
Yeah, I will say Oregon does play with energy. I don't think they're in the right position, but I think the effort is there from Oregon. They're still very young. They have a number of promising younger players, but if I'm going to take anything positive away, is that there is effort. It's just not aligned with what the coaches are doing.
I am blown away by what is going on at Notre Dame, and I'm a little fearful that Brian Kelly has lost the team. And, from a Notre Dame fan's perspective, that's obviously very frustrating because last year was a good year, right? They almost made the playoff last year.
For sure.
Last year was a good year, and they still have a ton of talent. But just as an objective college football quasi-analyst here, it is really funny and intriguing to watch. It is a storyline unto itself, and it's going to continue to develop unless this team starts playing better.
Luckily, we're both longtime Virginia Tech fans.
We are now.
Yeah, man. We're just fans of coaches that have appeared on the show. So,
oh, my God. Go
Arizona.
Go
Arizona. Virginia.
Go
Houston, man.
America's team.
Yeah, America's team. Houston. Done. Longtime Houston fan, Dan Rubenstein.
All right. Well, this has been sort of fun, I guess. We will be back with more energy, with more excitement, with more college football to discuss on our Wednesday preview show. If you like the show, iTunes.com/solidverbal. Find all of our stuff at solidverbal.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Dan, I will talk to you in a few days. Okay.
I'm looking up Pat League scores just to see if there's anything we can end on a high note on. Hey, look, Lehigh beat Princeton. Suck it, Ivy. Good for you.
I saw Dartmouth won.
What did I tell you? I just listened to our listeners. That's all. New York's one true team, Fordham, after Rutgers embarrassed the hell out of the state. Fordham beats Penn. Rough week for the Ivies. Georgetown takes down Columbia. Lafayette did lose to Villanova, but that was anticipated. Colgate hung with Richmond.
Yeah.
VMI beat Bucknell. But again, this is an entire military.
Yeah.
And I would say all in all, a pretty good week. Solid week for the Pat League.
All right. Well, this was sort of fun. I appreciate everyone's support. Thank you for calling in. All sorts of great calls this week. Keep them coming. 408 Verbal 1. For that guy over there, Dan Rubenstein.
Yo.
For myself, Ty Hildenbrand. Thanks again for joining us here on the Solid Verbal. Catch you in a few days. Stay solid.
Peace.